For airports that are required by Federal Advisory Circular 150-5200-38 to have a wildlife hazard mitigation and assessment plan, this solution meets that need. It includes an operations dashboard that is map-centric, where inside the map you can see there are the location of all the wildlife observations that have been taken by the wildlife biologist. Also, a pre-configured grid that's used when the observations are conducted. And then details about each individual wildlife sighting, including the grid number and then automatic coding of the weather that was observed. It's not required that you'd enter that information when you take the observations, including the picture of the observation and the wildlife. So the interactive map also includes the ability to filter based on date when the observations occurred. And you can see as I adjust those filters, the map interacts as well as do the info cards. And if there are any observations that either do not or do require mitigation. So it's very easy for a manager of the wildlife program to use this interactive tool to then see details about specific information on observations. And being able to interactively use these information cards to understand observations makes this ArcGIS dashboard very, very valuable. So I could see individual observations simply by interacting with the map. It's a web-based, secure method. You can also see the number of observations that did require mitigation and the status of each. So these were completed observations or those that are in progress and where they are on the map. You can see then the wildlife assignments that have been created and the progress of those unassigned all the way through completed and canceled, and the observations for the wildlife. Based on the density and the color, the heat map shows the greater number of species that were observed during individual observations. So I could zoom in and then identify the status of any mitigation efforts of each of these. In this case, it looks like a coyote was observed, and that requires mitigation. In the bottom, I can see the wildlife species by grid. So it would give me the ability then to see trends, and obviously certain grid cells would contain a larger number of observations or species for each observation, which would then geographically give me an indication that there might be some issues that are requiring efforts to mitigate based on certain parts of the airport. So very, very simple to use. The other part of this solution includes a mobile tool that wildlife observers or biologists can use in the field. That tool contains a map, which again shows the grid, the location of the existing observations that were taken. So if I'm out in the field, I could then tap on an individual grid or look at an individual observation with my tablet simply by tapping on the map and interacting with it. Could even see pictures and then when the observations were recorded. So as the observer, I'm going to be moving throughout the airport across each of these grid cells, and I'm going to use the form on the left in order to conduct an observation. So let's just go through that. The date and time can be automatically populated based on the clock that's on the tablet. Makes this much quicker and easier. Also, if there's a wildlife strike, there's a link in the form that allows me to go directly to the FAA's website where I could sign in and then report a bird strike or a wildlife strike and submit that directly to the FAA through this form if I have access to the internet when I'm out in the field. So it just makes that much more efficient. Enter in the airport name and then completely fill out the form and submit it directly while I'm actually conducting an observation. There's also a map component in the form which allows me then to zoom into the area where I'm located or use the GPS on my device to automatically track my location. In this case, I'm going to conduct an observation where I see wildlife here, and it tags the latitude and longitude automatically as well. The items in this form can be configured, but I've configured them so that I'm on the airport operations area, and then drop downs allow me to then quickly select the area and then the species. So it looks like in this case I've observed a coyote, one coyote that was running across the asphalt. And again, these forms can be configured so that it makes it much quicker and easier rather than having to enter that data manually. Add comments. You could use voice activation on my tablet to add comments, or just simply type them in. And then if I were able to, I could snap a picture of that coyote if it was available, or upload one from my phone that I took already, and then create that observation automatically. And what you'll notice then is that that observation appears on this map, and because it requires mitigation, the wildlife manager would automatically receive an email notification saying it requires mitigation. Then they could click here on their email, and then it would open up the dashboard, and at the bottom they could see the most current observation that requires mitigation. So it's immediate and automatic notification, which is included in the application. And because of that, now there's a tool that allows me, as the manager of the workforce of people who go out and conduct mitigation, I can use this tool to generate a work order. In this case, this observation about the coyote, I'm going to go ahead and create a workforce assignment, and you can see the information that was collected in the form by the wildlife observer is tagged here, including the photograph. So this is a critical issue because it poses a serious safety of flight issue. So I'm going to create an assignment directly here in the application, and in this case it's going to be a lethal take of that species, and I can click on the map or enter in the address where that observation occurred. It's a critical assignment, and I want it completed by 11:30 today, so you can schedule using this tool and then assign an ID to that individual lethal take. So I simply fill out in the description what I need to have done, upload a picture, and then I create that work assignment. It also is tagged with the address or the lat long. I could use the map to then find that information. I simply click create the assignment, and now the assignment has been created. The next step in the process would have been to upload a picture of that coyote, if one was available, and then select who I'm going to assign this to. I can see the number of people who are working, but it looks like John Glenn is available and he's on duty now. So I can select that individual worker and see on the map where they're located because they're signed into the workforce application. It tracks their location. So this has not been assigned to anyone yet, so I'm going to go ahead and select this assignment, and then I'm going to assign it to John Glenn. And when I do that, John Glenn receives a notification that he needs to go out and conduct this lethal take. So in the application, he simply fills out and taps on the form, acknowledges that he's received the notification. It changes the status to being received. He can see a picture of the coyote and where it was when the observer took that picture. And then I'm going to indicate as the mitigator that I'm starting this operation. And if I tap on the form to then fill out a very simple set of notes, then I can make documentation available for auditing purposes that I'm actually in the process now of conducting the lethal take of this coyote. I can also then click a link and conduct a survey once I've actually done a lethal take. So it links to several other apps if you'd like it to. First would be that I'd put in the observation ID for that lethal take. And then select that it actually is a lethal take and what method I used for the lethal take. In this case, I used a rifle. And the location of that take is automatically recorded. I simply sign and then submit this form for auditing purposes so that it's clear that this action has been taken and it's been completed. Of course, that information then can be fed back into the operations dashboard or the RTS dashboard. So once I'm done with that, then I click Finish, and that assignment is done. Once the assignment has been completed by the worker, then of course the status changes to completed and the color on that assignment shows up as green. So the manager of those field people who do all these then can see that that task has been completed, and for auditing purposes is very important. I'm going to go back to the dashboard now and then see on the left-hand panel these different assignment types and the status of each. And as you can see, that lethal take of that coyote turned green because the worker actually completed that task. So I'll just turn off these data layers and then show the assignment so you can see that green assignment where that lethal take happens. So that's all the information that was filled in the form by the individual who was out there conducting that mitigation effort. You can see there were 4 mitigation efforts that were underway, and this is that list of those that are active. For reporting purposes, the solution offers the ability then to capture all the data as individual records. And you can see this is that observation about that lethal take that happened. So for auditing purposes and be able to generate a report, this tool allows you to do that. So I could create a form that looks simple, very similar to this, or custom configure it so that the FAA accepts it. That's the end of the solution. I appreciate your attention. Thank you very much.